Hello, friends, and welcome to the Reclamation Podcast. I'm your host, Megan Colleen Johnson, and I'm here to guide us in raw conversations about thriving in life and work, so that together we can step into personal agency and stop letting life happen to us. We'll cover topics like health, boundaries, communication, finances, and worthiness. That badass business you've been dreaming of, it's not so far off. The desire to wake up feeling fully alive, it's right around the corner. All right. Hey, Carlee. It's great to have you on the podcast. So for everyone here, Dr. Carlee I've been working with Dr. Carlee for about a year. She's my primary chiropractor, as well as other things. She has functional medicine, nutrition, and neurology. But I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself more because you kind of do a lot of things. So go ahead and tell us what you're about.
Yeah, so I am a chiropractor. That is my main degree. But I do quite a bit of different things in my office. So I kind of figure myself as like a functional practitioner. So it's all about optimizing the body's function. And here in my office, I use three things: chiropractic, nutrition work, and then mindset work or emotional work to get your body at its optimal function.
Yeah, and I love that so much. So a little bit about how we met. My husband and I initially heard about you through a BNI meeting. I think you and Alex were both at the same meeting and you were both kind of like testing it out.
Yep.
But I don't think either of you actually ended up joining the group, which is kind of funny. But it did function as a catalyst in connecting us, which is cool. So Alex heard about you at the BNI meeting and you shared a lot about your work with trauma and releasing trauma through kinesiology. We're going to be talking about some big words today, and it's a little bit out of my realm. But so you talked about that in the meeting, and at that time, like last year, I was having quite a bit of difficulty in work and like with migraines, and definitely needed to establish more boundaries in my life. So we connected, and then your work kind of started my journey of like setting boundaries and putting myself first and just self-care, which is awesome.
Yes. Perfect.
And yeah, so I think it's funny how that happened though, how we kind of got connected. Too funny.
Things work in mysterious ways, I tell ya.
For sure. So I would love for you to just kind of share a little bit about your story, how you came to what you do, and yeah, just share a little bit of your story. Feel free to share some of the hardships and such as well. A big part of this podcast is a space where small business owners we can come together. We can share some of the difficulties as well as the celebrations that we've had in our journeys, and then kind of learn from each other and also just expand each other's mindsets for success. So
yeah. So I always tell people that I'm a unicorn when it comes to being a business owner. What is funny about podcasts is you can't see that I am not even 5 feet tall. And so most people put me at being a lot younger than I am, which is amazing. But so I was the crazy person that back when I was in 6th grade knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I was blessed to have two amazing mentors that were a husband and wife chiropractic duo. And their life just seemed amazing to my 6th grade eyes. They had this perfect, beautiful little family. They had this amazing house. They had great hours. They were always happy. Kids were always healthy. If the kids had a dance recital, it was no big deal. They were in control and they were able to be there. And so I got to be a part of their family and see this. And so I remember the day I came home to my parents and being like, I'm going to be a chiropractor. And they just, laughed at me and were like, okay, whatever you want to do. Always supportive. And so that is where like the spark and the interest just kind of began. And so then my motto from that moment on was, how do I be a chiropractor? How do I be the best chiropractor? And how do I become a chiropractor the fastest? One thing I was well aware of is student loans are not cheap. And if I was going to jump into this, I had to be prepared that it was going to take a little bit of time. And so while I was, going through middle school, high school, I ended up continuing to work for this couple, ended up going in and working in their office, loved everything about it. College, I ended up doing like a special program called a 3+3, which allowed me to finish my chiropractic school about 2.5 years quicker than normal. And so that was crazy as well. And then once I got to chiropractic school, I just, decided to keep pushing and keep going. And I know that's something we have talked about before, is just doing all the things. And that's kind of what we do. We wear all the hats as small business owners. And so maybe I was practicing back in chiropractic school, but I was a live-in nanny to 3 amazing kids. They had a single mom, and so I got to be mom a couple days a week. I was teaching 2 to 5 yoga classes a week, studying or in class 8 to 5 days a week. And so my life was crazy, literally crazy. And the whole time I was just dead set in what I wanted to do. I had this vision of opening up a chiropractic clinic in my hometown where I had learned about chiropractic, loved chiropractic. It was going to be close to my family and everything seemed great. And then, we always have that spark. Something comes up. And I was actually here in Nashville at the country music, whatever it's called, concert series at CMA Fest. And was like, you know what? The thought of opening up a practice in my hometown seemed like it was the thing I was supposed to do rather than the thing I wanted to do. It seems like one of those things where it's like, okay, get your job, find a boy, get married, buy a house, have a baby. And I was just like, I'm not that person. And so when I was down in Nashville, I was like, you know what? I'm going to move to Nashville. I am going to move there and I am going to open a practice there. I was a challenge seeker all the time. And that sounded like an amazing challenge to go open a place where I didn't know anyone. And so that's when I guess the challenges started, because I was going away from the grind. And this is something I don't even know if you know about me, is all of my 28 cousins and my, 10 aunts and uncles, my dad has a pretty big family, all live within 5 miles of my grandma's house.
Oh, wow.
And none of them have ever left. And so I was that first person to step away. And so that was a huge struggle just because we'd always been so close. But my dreams, my wanting that kind of challenge is what pushed me. So I did it. I ended up packing up the car, moving to Franklin, and got dealt with more challenges. So I think it's a pretty big thing in the news right now, how Nashville is just expanding crazily. And when I got down here, my budget of what seemed like a responsible thing to do wouldn't even allow me to rent an apartment. Not to mention, no one wants to rent to someone who's going to start a business and has tons of student loan debt. So that was a crazy part of the adventure. And of course, with hope, prayer, and meeting lots of amazing people, it ended up working out. And so I found out that in the first 4 months of practice, my practice is doing, exponentially better every single day. And to the point of which the people that I was renting space from ended up wanting me to pay more rent because I was making so much money. And I was like, this is amazing.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, you know what? I think it's time to expand, which we all get to that point in our business where we're either settling or we need to make a drastic change for a chance of expansion. And I hit that moment and I found the perfect location. And it was to buy an office from a doctor who had been working for a couple years, and he had to leave town for a family health emergency. And he was selling me the practice at a really reasonable rate. The space was beautiful. Everything was perfect. And on the day before we signed the papers, the day before, I got a text message from him. And all it said was, sorry, the deal is off. And I about lost it.
Yeah.
There was so much hope. There was so much joy in this new chapter. And I think we all know how much fear can also lie in that. And I was at that point of being over the fear. And then he just hit me like a freight train. And I ended up talking to him. or rather responding to his text, and he goes, only conversations allowed over email. And I was like, okay, I wait. And then the next day, kick a girl when she's down, I get an email from him saying that the deal didn't go through because I was an entitled, young, naive millennial that basically didn't deserve his space. Wow. And it was just those things that it's like everything was looking so far up, and reality check came back in. And I needed some time to recover. And so I spent about 2 months just kind of going through the motions. And I know that's never something we want to do, but it was just all the energy I had to do. And that following January, just for fun, was meeting with a fellow clinician I had never met before, and sat down on her couch to eat lunch with her and hang out. And out of the blue, just completely out of the blue, she goes, I have a space next door. Do you want to rent it? And my jaw dropped. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. We immediately walked next door, checked out the space, and it was exactly what I needed. Yeah, it could use a coat of paint. It could use a little love, but the price she was offering at it and the accommodation she was giving me was like exactly what my heart needed in that moment. And, maybe it was some higher power that was just telling me to slow down for a little bit and just listen. And by doing so, the perfect opportunity arose. And I think that was close to when maybe we started connecting. Because that was about exactly a year ago. It was actually Valentine's Day of last year is when my first day in the new space was. Yeah. In my first month in the new space, my practice doubled. And by 3 months later, it had tripled. And now a year later, I'm actually looking at expanding, hiring a full-time employee, and even bringing in a second doctor. So it's been crazy.
Yeah, that's a wild ride.
Highs and lows.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's like so crazy that you had so much growth so quickly. But also, go ahead.
I'm a huge person on energy. And I think when your energy is right, or if you're surrounded with negative energy, and I know you can relate to that too, and things you've gone through, is that when you get the energy right, the momentum will happen. The universe will help push you in the direction you need to go when you quit putting obstacles in its way.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why, I think hearing these stories and hearing how people overcome the different challenges, it kind of can help each of us expand that mindset and just be like, oh, I need to come more into alignment with what I'm, what my dreams are, and be able to accept those challenges and be able to kind of move through them. So I love hearing your story and hearing how you kind of tackled those different things. And it had a little bit of that season where you had to kind of go through the motions, but ultimately you were able to kind of accept the next step, which was the expansion, which is so cool. I love that. So I feel like I have a few additional questions as part of your journey and kind of hearing it. One of the questions that kind of came up is when you left your family, because I know Alex and we also moved down here, and we kind of left our family behind. And I'm just curious, what has that experience been for you? And how have you kind of navigated that in order to prioritize kind of family time, but also, pursue your career in a healthy way?
Yeah, I think, one of the cool things is that we live in a really amazing town. Yeah. And so, everyone, and even people I didn't even know I knew, want to come down and visit. And so that's been a huge thing for me. And everyone that comes down, I just do a great job at creating boundaries of, hey, you're welcome to come down. Know that I work from, 8 to 4 on Thursday, and I work from 7 to 1 on Friday. I'm happy to hang out Thursday night, Friday afternoon, and the weekend. But these times I'm going to be busy, so you'll have to entertain yourselves. And everyone seems to be 100% okay with that. And so that's a big thing. And it's allowed me to see people that I may not have been able to see, because as we know, in our first couple years of business, it is kind of that grind mentality of we need to create a solid foundation to build upon. And I would also say I am in a season of weddings. I think I flew back the first year I lived in Tennessee. I flew back to Minnesota 6 times.
Oh, wow.
Last year, I think it was 8, and this year it's going up to 11. So that allows me to go back and see family often that I don't even know if they realize I left.
That's kind of awesome. I mean, wedding season could definitely be crazy, like when friends are getting married and such, but that's also awesome that it gives you that opportunity to kind of head back and connect with people. That's cool.
And I do think that a lot of growth happens when you're allowed to separate yourself from the people who made you the way you are. And not in a negative way, but in a self-discovery way.
Yeah.
And to figuring out, are these my true belief systems, or are these things that I'm just putting into place because I'm supposed to put them into place? And being in Tennessee and away from my family has really allowed me to expand the ones that I truly believe in, and then kind of bypass or just understand more of why they have the ones that they believe in. And then going back, being able to kind of communicate between the two.
Yeah, definitely. I know, like, I kind of think of it and reference it as like our programming and how we grew up and the different establishments and beliefs that were kind of programmed into us. And then I know that over the past, 3 to 5 years or so, I feel like I've slowly been able to kind of work through that and kind of strip back things and recognize, okay, well, where did this stem from? What is my actual belief around this? And it just kind of allows that space to grow in a different way, and expand into who you're meant to be as like an individual outside of your family.
Yes, 100%.
Awesome. So then another question I have in regards to kind of your story and just like, it sounds like you do a lot. I know you do a lot. Every time that I come in and you're like, out 2 yoga classes this morning, I'm always like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. But how do you learn to kind of prioritize self-care as well and like establish some balance in your busy life? I'd love to hear you just kind of speak to that.
Yeah. So, I love self-care. Definitely don't do it enough. I definitely preach it to my clients probably more than I actually do it, but I do try to make that time. And one of the things is, so I've been in a long distance relationship. And so my boyfriend was living in Memphis. And so we obviously wanted to see each other. And we had to find a way that we could make that work feasibly. So Memphis is about 3 hours from Nashville. And that's kind of allowed me to create some scheduled self-care, or I call it like 4 days on, 3 days off. And so it gives me, I'm a person like, once I'm in and I want to be committed.
Yeah.
But then I do need a recovery time. And so I use my weekends, and I actually create like a longer weekend. I get done with work at noon on Fridays and don't start until noon on Mondays, to allow myself to kind of close out the week, whether it's, going and grabbing dinner with a friend Friday night or driving to Memphis. And then it allows me to start my Monday with that correct mentality of, let's sit, have a cup of coffee, maybe take an extra 2 hours of sleep or go take a yoga class, to really make sure that I'm set for those next 4 days of commitment to helping my patients.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really nice structure. And I do really appreciate how structured it seems like your days are. And I think as small business owners, that's something that the more that I talk to people, it's so important to figure out a structure that works for us. But then also kind of have like that Monday morning time, that's your flexibility time. But it's like also surrounded by structure, which I think is really cool. It's kind of like trusting your intuition and what you need, but also kind of establishing structures around that intuitive time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I know for me, and I've grown so much in the last 2.5 years since being in Nashville, but there's definitely times when you're that new business owner and you're like, okay, well, I also need to keep the lights on today. So if somebody can only come in on Monday, and just understanding your value and knowing that if someone really wants to come see you and take in your amazing service that you're providing for them, that you need to be on your A game. And if that means taking off a little bit of time so that you can better follow through during that time you are committed, it's going to make your business so much more sustainable.
Definitely. Yeah, that's awesome. So kind of like moving on to the next topic, your work, I think it's so interesting and so empowering in a lot of ways. And so while this podcast is, primarily for business owners, and we're kind of talking a little bit about business like structures and such, it also has a lot of individuals that are, struggling with topics like boundaries and health. And as small business owners, I think we have those things that we struggle with as well. So I would love to have you kind of share about your work and how it expands kind of beyond chiropractic, and then how you've used the kind of that platform as being a chiropractor to also help in healing trauma and limiting beliefs with kinesiology.
Yeah. So, chiropractors, we tend to get all sorts of different, like titles or what people think about us. And so that was something that I've had to learn and grow through my entire season of becoming a chiropractor and now working as one. So when I first started, I was in one of those clinics where I call it, and this is probably bad that me as a chiropractor is calling it this, a whack-em crack-em shop. Where, which are not bad. Okay. Just a disclaimer. Those are not bad. They're amazing chiropractors doing amazing things, just a different philosophy than myself. Mm-hmm. So originally that's where I was. I was in a clinic like that. We were seeing 100 people a day. People were getting better. It's not that they weren't, but we would just have to see them a lot more often. Mm-hmm. And through this thing and the next, meeting other people, I ended up moving into a different clinic that saw about 20 to 25 people a day. And this clinic is where I learned the applied kinesiology. And it was this amazing philosophy that if we got people to not just move right, meaning the chiropractic end of it, mm-hmm. but if we got them to poop right, eat right, think right, people got better way faster and just got better results. And they actually were empowered to take their health into their own hands.
Yeah.
And so my huge thing was, how do I do this? How do I make it even better? How do I get my clients to want to be healthy rather than just needing to come and get a quick adjustment, every week or every other week? So my logo is actually a triangle. And that is my philosophy, that if we get people moving right, get their structure right, their biochemistry or their nutrition right, and then their mindset right, their triangle is in balance and their body's at optimal health. And so the kinesiology is just a diagnostic tool to allow me to do that. And what kinesiology is basically it's manual muscle testing. We ask the body what's going on via different things, and then we correct them. So for example, with the chiropractic end of the triangle, I'll actually use muscle testing to figure out where your muscles firing, where are they not? And if they're not firing, why are they not firing? Is it because a bone is out of alignment? Is it because you sprained your ankle? Is it because your muscle's too tight? And then we figure out exactly how to fix it. Whereas the kinesiology, when it comes to nutrition or biochemistry, that's where I guess the voodoo comes in that you've maybe experienced, and it's all scientifically proven, but it's this amazing idea that everything in the universe has a frequency or a vibration. And when different vibrations are put together, it either empowers the body or it causes inflammation or dysfunction. Mm-hmm. And so the body, the muscle will actually shut down when put under different stressors, such as food sensitivities, vitamin deficiencies, certain toxicities. And we want your body to be at that optimal function where it's always firing at its strongest. And so we just need to eliminate those. Mm-hmm. And then the last thing we do is the emotional stuff. And I know that's one thing that, we've worked on and I work on with a lot of clients. And I think the easiest way to comprehend that is to tell a story. And I think this is a different one than what you know, but I think this was just a little bit more relevant.
For sure.
So I had a guy come into the office, which is already a little unusual. I don't always have males come in until their wives come in first and then the male comes in. But a male had come into the office and he had low back pain. And it had been going on for about 4 months and had already been seeing a chiropractor, which immediately made me kind of scratch my head and be like, okay, well, why are you here if you're already seeing a chiropractor?
Yeah.
And he came in and this low back pain hadn't gone away, and working on him, muscle testing him. And some reason I was like, hey, when did your back pain start? And there was like a moment of silence. And he said, October 1st. And I was like, okay, what happened October 1st? Just completely wondering, had no idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of unique that he had like the exact day, like he knew when it started hurting. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, what happened? And with a very somber face, he goes, I was at the Las Vegas shooting. And I just instantly got chills. And I was like, I know why the chiropractic hasn't been working. I know why you can't get out of this pain. And so I started working with him. And what I do is I use a part of the brain that I stimulate to separate the emotional moment from the physical response. And so, for example, you're driving in traffic, your shoulders are in your ears, you're gripping the steering wheel because you have somewhere to be. If I get rid of all the tension that's in your arms, in your shoulders, in your neck, it's just traffic, which makes it way easier for your body to logically think about and act upon. And so that's exactly what I did with this patient who walked in the door. Is we worked through the physical ailments of stress that were still retained in his body from that incident. And it's kind of like, you know, you're carrying the weight of the world on your back. That's what he was doing from the event. And within 2 sessions, his back pain was completely gone. He was back to working, back to doing everything that he wanted to do. And he felt more completed in that event. He felt like he actually worked through it. He found safe ways to cope with the things that had happened and find strength from that moment to move forward.
Yeah. Wow.
And so that's just the philosophy of what I've kind of come up with. And it's allowed me to get to that point of clients and patients knowing exactly what their body needs. And they know when one side of their triangle is out of whack, and they know how to bring it back in, or they know that I'm a reference and I'm here to help support them in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know last year you were such a huge help to me. And like, I had never really thought about all of this stuff before. I mean, like I kind of in some ways do, like, you know, we think at a certain level that like things are interconnected, but at the same time, recognizing that trauma and stressors get stored in our bodies and we do respond to those differently. It just hadn't been something that I put at the forefront of my thinking and my, like how I interacted and sought out help. So that's an amazing story though. And thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, such a cool experience as well. I'm sure that was like a fun experience for you to be able to walk through and see his transformation.
Yeah. And that's the best part about what I do is see people change and see people grow and get to be on that journey with them as just, it's one of those things where I get to be just a tool. I think a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, like you did this. And I'm like, no, I just allowed you to find a way to better, you know, deal with things, or I'm just a toolkit to allow you to see what's happening on the inside.
Yeah, that's so good. And that kind of leads into the next kind of thought process or the next kind of topic where I know in my experience, limiting beliefs, trauma, lack of boundaries have impacted my health and how I showed up in my business. And I was just curious if you can kind of expand on what we've been talking about, but can you speak to your experiences with how it impacts the whole person in business as well? And like, I know for you, you've probably seen that in your business some, but currently I'm working through a series that's all about like real power and what it looks like to embody power as a small business owner and how our personal lives affect our business lives, including, you know, traumas that we maybe have experienced in our personal lives or stressors in our personal lives that then affect our business lives, and how we kind of have to think of things more holistically, kind of like we've been discussing. But I'd love to hear your perspective on that and how you've maybe seen that or how you've experienced that on your journey. But I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. So it was probably 8 months ago now. I was working with a coach of mine, and just out of the blue, she just looked me dead in the face and she's like, you need to stop saying that you're small. And I was just like, hey, what? And she was like, you need to stop saying you're small. Yes, your stature is small, but you are not small. And it was one of those things that it was a thought in my head that was seriously limiting my life and my business. It was where that little voice came back in my head where it's like, okay, well, I'm only, 2.5 years into practice, or I'm only, I'm a young doctor, or I'm new to Tennessee, or, I'm actually physically small and I'm young and I'm a female in the industry. Yeah. And it was this word that was just kind of overpowering me. And it was that person to just look me in the eyes and be like, you're not small. Stop saying it. And that's when I started to realize how something in my head could be such a limiting belief and literally taking the energy out of me.
Yeah.
And this is one cool thing, is that my boyfriend also does what I do. And so we have a lot of communication about a lot of this stuff. But one of the other things that really bothered me is I felt like I could never go out to dinner. And I know that sounds so silly, but I felt like I could never go out to dinner because some days a girl just wants a hamburger and french fries, I tell you. Or maybe I want to enjoy a drink watching a football game. And I was so worried because I'd often see clients out and about and be like, okay, I don't want them to see me eating this or drinking this, or because I'm supposed to be the doctor, I'm supposed to be healthy. But in my mindset, it's always an 80-20 balance. Mm. And when you allow yourself that 80-20 balance, it gives you grace and it gives you that ability that, yes, we have limiting beliefs, but we're more powerful than them. And it's within that relatability to your clients and that ability to be like, hey, yeah, I do have a hamburger every once in a while. I do fall into those moments of maybe a little bit more on myself than I should be, that I'm able to better communicate that to my clients.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And yeah. And so it's just getting to that point where the acknowledgement and telling them that, yeah, I am a human, things happen, and allowing that expression. And I always say, as long as you're working, your emotions and your thoughts don't get stored into your physical body. And sometimes working on an emotion is sitting on your bed and crying it out. Mm-hmm. And sometimes working on emotion is talking to a friend. And so if you can help relieve those physical ailments just by dealing with the emotions, they never actually become stored inside your body.
Yeah, you have to kind of allow them. I know my coach says that all the time. It's just, she's just like, it's always allowing, like allow the feeling to come, and then you're going to save yourself so much down the road.
Time, energy, everything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sorry, you can keep going if you had more to that, but
I mean, that's pretty much it. Another tool just to add into the toolbox of all the people who listen, is understanding, and I've been working with some clients on this week, is understanding kind of your faults. So the example would be, I had a client come in and she was a person who needed a goal. She was like, I was so good in sales because I knew exactly what goal I had to achieve. Mm. And she's like, I need a goal. I need a goal. I need a goal. And I was like, okay, awesome. But she also had this huge self problem of, if she didn't hit that goal, she thought of herself as a failure. Mm. But then she knew that when she was working towards a goal, she felt so creative and so empowered, and she felt in the zone and she found her strength. Mm-hmm. So I kind of took all these things. I'm like, okay, she knows what she needs, but she recognizes where her fault is. And so what we came up together was creating a goal that was achievable, but still enough to make her grow and find that creative space of working towards that thing. Mm-hmm. And we just added a disclaimer, basically saying, I acknowledge that whatever happens in the next 3 years are subject to change. I'm willing to take other possibilities as they present themselves, but know that what I'm doing is worth its while. And by doing so, you've created that thing that allows you to have this amazing opportunity, all this energy moving forward. But at the same time, it stops you from getting into that mental state of self-doubt. Mm-hmm. Because you have that disclaimer of, oh, well, an amazing opportunity may arise and I need to take that, not just stick to this goal because that's what I said I was going to do. Mm-hmm.
Allowing yourself some space and grace for what might come.
100%. And I love that word, just providing yourself grace to be where you need to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a big thing for me, is just as long as you can acknowledge where you're going, and that's where I think so many coaches and support groups can get you there, or at least support you along those things, you'll be able to do it.
For sure. Yeah. So kind of like leading into the next topic then, I know, so now we've kind of talked a lot about like the emotion piece and kind of that holistic perspective from like the mindset. But then I'd also love if you could speak a little bit to the functional medicine, because that was something I found really interesting too. Like I've always tried to eat healthy, but the frequency idea of like different things resonate with our bodies in different ways. So I'd love if you can kind of just speak to that and like how we can eat a little bit differently and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, two kind of different things, right? So functional medicine itself. So I always talk to people about function over feeling. So if you are functioning well, okay, everything's working perfect, versus feeling well, we just feel well, but we don't really know what's happening under the surface. And to kind of get people to grasp that concept, I always talk about food poisoning. You're puking, you're pooping, you're sweating, your body's like, ew, get this thing out of me. Our bodies are actually functioning really well. And by functioning well, we get to that point of healing and we get to that point of recovery, where you take something maybe like cancer, where your body's literally replicating a poison. Your body's not functioning well, but some people don't even know that they have cancer. And so that's the kind of motto behind functional medicine. It's a proactive approach, and it's also a very specific individualized approach. It's not just looking at, okay, a lab range is between 50 and 250. And as long as you're in that gap, it's like, okay, well, what if I'm at 51?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in the gap, but is that the best place to be? And so functional medicine finds that optimal spot where you feel and function at your best, which allows you to thrive. And what we know is that when our personal lives are thriving, our businesses are thriving.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is the whole basis behind what I do, is being on that proactive end. And the frequency side of things is this inflammation. I know everybody talks about inflammation this, inflammation that. It's just inflammation. And I always tell people that, yeah, our bodies have inflammation, but imagine this inflammation as like a 5-gallon bucket. Okay. Your inflammation should take up about 1 to 2 inches of your bucket.
Mm.
But we live in this amazing life where we have all these cool, amazing restaurants, and we decide that, we can't just hang out with friends and go for a walk anymore. We got to go to dinner every night of the week. And so our 5-gallon bucket starts to fill up from a dinner, from a birthday party, from an extra glass of wine we didn't need, to stress from our business, or didn't have time for lunch, so we just ran to Jimmy John's or something between. And now our 5-gallon bucket is overflowing.
Yeah.
So now things that you think would maybe not cause problems, your body's just so confused that they cause problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one thing we did with you, is the kinesiology muscle testing for food sensitivities, to find out in your state where you're inflamed, what things are making it worse.
Mm-hmm.
And we just slowly but surely started to empty out your 5-gallon bucket. We dealt with the foods that were causing problems. We helped amp up the hormones and the nutrition that needed more. And we helped decrease the stress.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing so, we got you back to that functioning point. And that's what we do with patients, is we get them functioning well and get them more in tune with their bodies.
Can you kind of speak to, you almost kind of brought it in a little bit there. Excuse me. I know when I came in initially, it was so interesting because you did want like a test on me to see kind of how my brain was functioning. And it like shared that I was like in fight or flight a lot. And with that, my hormone levels were kind of out of whack. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit? And like, I think as business owners, a lot of times we get ourselves into that space where we are like fight or flight, we're hustling, we're striving a lot, and we don't bring down those levels, especially as women in business. I think that I'm sure I'm not the only one out there that's been in that place.
Yes.
Can you kind of just speak to that a little bit? That was like so interesting to me when I first came in.
Are you talking the marching test?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a big thing. Okay. So we have 2 systems in our body. We have this fight or flight system. Oh my goodness, I'm getting chased by a pterodactyl inside your body. You're pressing on the gas, but you're also pressing on the brake, and we don't know what's going on. Where we also have this beautiful, flowery rainbow state of rest, digest, and heal. And now we can't avoid stress, especially being business owners. We cannot avoid stress, but it's the severity of the stress. And then going back to that concept of how much is it taking a toll on your body? Because stress is important. It allows our businesses to stay afloat. It keeps our families safe. It makes you not run back into a burning building. But stress is something that, when dealt with correctly through different breathing exercises, healthy diet, meditation, yoga, good sleep, that stress doesn't cause physical ailments. And so when we get that high stress, it's just the perfect storm for inflammation and disease. And so big thing for clients, it's like, we got to get you eating right. We got to get you digesting your food. We need to get you sleeping, and we just need to get you breathing. And by doing that, it helps take some of that, what we call sympathetic, or that stress response, out of the physical body and place it back into your head.
Yeah.
And that's one thing as a business owner I've learned that I've had to do, is prioritize my sleep. And understand that, okay, I don't care if there's a party going on. I don't care if there's a cool event. You have a purpose, and you're here to perform that purpose. And if you want to do it to the best of your ability, your body needs rest and recovery.
Yeah. I actually did a whole podcast episode just about that. Just about sleep.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Because it's definitely something I feel like as small business owners too, we can easily set sleep aside. It's like one of those things where, like, okay, I can sleep on the weekend, or I can sleep another time. This, I know for me, sometimes I'll get a project. Last night, even, I was up kind of late, working on a project, and it's so easy to set to the side, but it's so important to give our bodies that space to recover and allow our minds to rest, so we can be ready to tackle the next thing when it comes up.
One thing with sleep that I always love to add, especially for business owners, is there is a small window right when you are about to fall asleep and right when you wake up in the morning, that you are the closest to your subconscious brain that you'll ever be. And so our subconscious brain is kind of that brain that's in the back that doesn't get influenced by you being like, oh, that's too much money, or I'm not good enough for that, or whatever it might be. And that's where the amazing ideas come from. And without getting that proper rest and having that brief 2 to 5 minutes when you first wake up, or right before you fall asleep, you don't get to tap into your true potential.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard that before. I feel like I've primarily heard of the subconscious talked about as as developed in our younger years, like in our early development years. Like that's where our subconscious like neural pathways are kind of crafted. How does that kind of integrate with that? Yeah.
So our subconscious brain is more of like the brain that sees all things. It hears all things. It knows all things. It's that kind of just computer, or that video camera that's just always playing. And it's our ability where we kind of get in those moments where maybe someone is having a fight or argument. And even though we're not a part of that argument, we feel for that argument. And we don't even maybe remember it happening. Maybe it happened at the grocery store or something like that. And so it's from all of those different things that we create thoughts, we create emotions, and we fine tune the things that maybe are overly affecting us and things that are under affecting us. And so, but it's in that moment that we can kind of block out the limiting beliefs, or discover what the limiting beliefs are to work through them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That's awesome. Thank you for kind of clarifying that for me. It's like interesting at each piece. There's so much, I feel like, in the wellness space that has been becoming more popular, or, just kind of coming into the more normal conversations. So it's always encouraging to like be able to add another piece to the puzzle. Especially like, I definitely have not gone to any type of medical school. So it's like kind of going through all of these different pieces of information and kind of putting together a holistic picture. So,
and that's all of what I want to do. It's you empower people to be their own kind of clinician. Yeah, we'll still need support along the ways, but the more in tune you become and the more proactive you can be, you're just going to set yourself up for more success.
Yeah. Kind of going off of that too, like needing, additional help, but also empowering ourselves. What would you recommend as far as when someone should pursue a chiropractor, versus a therapist or a coach in your opinion?
I think we all need coaches. That's just my personal opinion. Coaches or mentors or someone that you can reach upon in moments of maybe distress or moments where you need accountability. Because these people can kind of just give you an extra eye of what's going on, and they empower you with your vision, your strategy, and everything. When it comes to more chiropractic end of things versus other clinicians, it all depends on your personality and the chiropractor you seek. I do think that chiropractic care is so, so, so important. Otherwise, I wouldn't be one, as chiropractic protects our nervous system, that thing that controls all things. And it's that concept of we go to the dentist every year or twice a year to get our teeth cleaned. We don't just go when they fall out. We go to the doctor to get a checkup or an annual physical to make sure everything's okay. We don't wait until we're having a heart attack. And so that's the same concept with chiropractic, is finding that person who can help make your body function and feel its best. Now, a couple things with me, I'm really into obviously kinesiology and functional medicine. And so when you're searching for that person, using those keywords in addition to chiropractic is going to find you someone with a more holistic mind that might practice more similar to I. Now, if you are looking for more of that emotional support, I will say I'm a huge fan of a lot of the therapists that are coming out with doing emotional work and EMDR, and using some of those neurological pathways. Both are amazing. And so it's just figuring out, where your financial, what's your financial place right now? Who is in your area? I know I do things where I'll do them remotely. Otherwise, there's other people who will do stuff remotely, and just finding that person. And once you get connected, they'll be able to decide exactly what your body needs to best thrive.
Yeah. I know from my own story, I started kind of connecting with you, and then I also got a life coach that was helping me. In the past, I've done different therapy and such, but the combo of having you as well as a life coach was actually really strong for me and really affected me in a positive way. But yeah, I think that's really, really effective, just to kind of think of it as what works for you. Keep some of these keywords in mind as you're seeking out help. Yeah. So kind of a few final questions before we wrap up, but what currently is your favorite part of your work?
The people. I think that's why a lot of us do what we do, is we love working with people and seeing how we can change their lives. I'm finally getting to that point in being here in Nashville, had it back in Minnesota, where I've seen clients who wanted to have babies and they couldn't have babies. And through optimizing their body, they got pregnant. And I've gotten to see them to the point of before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and now their child is crawling all over the floors of my office, and I even work on the child. And so that is the most amazing part, is I get to influence them in a way to make their kids happier and healthier, and the relationships that are developed being in their lives.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of us do. We do this work because of the people and just being able to help empower each other. But that's so amazing. You've been able to be part of that journey for people, the pregnancy journey. Because I know that it can be so huge for people to finally get pregnant after a season of, struggling with that. So that's amazing. You've been able to see that whole process through.
It's fun. That's for sure.
So then who are some of your favorite role models or mindset expanders when it comes to embodying what you teach others, setting healthy boundaries, and wellness?
Yeah. So I think social media has allowed us to kind of find a lot more of those inside of our individual businesses, but also just mainstream. And so for me, I love when people are able to communicate health to others in a way that they can understand. And so there's tons of different doctors and influencers on Instagram, like Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Carrie Jones. There is actually a naturopathic student named Functional Foods who, that guy must live on Instagram, but good for him. But they just make health attainable for people who maybe don't know all the lingo. Yeah. Another Dr. Axe here in Nashville. He's doing an amazing job at that. And then for me, my mentors are the people who got me into this, and keeping those relationships strong and relevant. So in those moments of need or in those moments of doubt, you can lean on them. And then I'm always into a good girl power podcast or girl power book of any of those sorts. And so I did jump on the Rachel Hollis bandwagon for sure. And then I'm also a huge fan of Samantha Ponder, and kind of just seeing how she has taken on a male dominated profession by being a female sports broadcaster. And she has a family and she has kids and she travels and she's real. And I think that's the best part of any of those people, is they're very authentic.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So a final question before we wrap up. So on your journey as a business owner, what is one way that you lean in when things start to get difficult?
Yes. So not freak out. No, sometimes freak out. But I'm that person where I acknowledge that if I wake up at 2 a.m. and I think of something, either I'm going to lay in bed and dwell on it for 4 hours till I have to get up, or I could just get up and get it done and then go back to bed and sleep for 2 or 3 hours. And so that's kind of the way I am with things, is when things get crazy, I need to do them. I just need to get them done. I need to just check them off the list. And if that means sacrificing personal time, or if that means sacrificing maybe a workout, I do it because I know that it's going to give me more peace and it's going to give me more time the next day. I also understand that staying up at 10 o'clock to get something done is probably going to take me 2 hours. Whereas getting up at 7:30 or doing it on my lunch break when I'm focused and in the zone, it's probably going to take me 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I always use the saying, done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
And that is just a huge thing to me. Just get it done, and then you can go on to the next thing.
Yeah. I know that's always difficult for, at least I know in my business, I have such a hard time sometimes when something pops up like that, where reminding myself that things don't always have to be perfect. It's all about just forward movement more than anything else. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I highly respect your time, and I've loved the conversation. I've loved hearing your stories as well. It's very encouraging and empowering.
Yeah, thanks.
So before we wrap up, can you share how we can find you online? And then if you have anything new we should be keeping our eyes out for, so we can all connect with you online.
Yes. So my Instagram is @doc, and it's DOC, Carlee B. And I will say I'm trying to do better at being on social media and do have someone that's helping me with that now. And so just trying to get more content out, and just would love to hear what people want to learn more about. It's one of those things where being the clinician, you know, and so you're like, oh, other people know. So that sort of a thing. And then Facebook as well. It's Dr. Carlee Brockman. And then my website is drcarleewellness.com. And we have tons of expansion coming in the office in the next 6 months, bringing in an extra doctor, holding more classes, both in the office and virtually. So just staying tuned on Instagram is going to be the best bet to stay in the loop.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for your time, and especially taking an afternoon or sometime in your afternoon on a day that you usually take clients. So thank you.
Yes, of course.
And I hope you have a super great afternoon. And I'll see you probably in a couple of weeks in your office.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Reclamation Podcast. I hope it served you on your own reclamation journey, and know that I'm rooting for you all the way. If you want to learn more about the show guests, head to the website, thereclamationpodcast.com. And if you found value in the show, 5 stars is always appreciated. Good things are coming for you. Bye for now.